Well, we're so happy to have you again. The first time, mashallah, was such an amazing event, such a beautiful event. We just had to bring you back. So without further ado, inshallah, I just want to dive right in, right? Set the stage for us. Israel right now is trying to destroy all the infrastructure in Rafah. According to reports, once they do that, they will pull out and claim victory. So I would like to hear your perspective, Sami Hamdi, as a political analyst, right? As someone who understands this on a much deeper level than we do. Paint a picture for what's going on currently in the situation and what we can expect from what's going on in Rafah and what's to follow, inshallah.
First of all, thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be back in Jersey. And, I know no one calls it here, but I don't want you guys to pop the bubble of the movies that I watched when I was younger growing up. So it is Jersey until otherwise, until further notice. In any case, Jazakumullah khair for having me. I think that in terms of the way the stage is set, I think that everybody expects an offensive to take place or a massacre to take place in Rafah. I think for a number of reasons. The first is that the US administration believes that this is a golden opportunity to expand Israel's borders, that there was an expectation that there would be a backlash, at least from Muslim leaders or from Muslim countries. That backlash hasn't been forthcoming. In fact, from some of the most important Muslim leaders, there's been tacit support for the genocide that's taking place in Gaza. I think the US administration expected perhaps that there would be a greater backlash from Europe. Instead, while Europe is increasingly calling for a ceasefire, Europe is not necessarily willing to commit any resources to push back on the Israelis. I think that the US administration expected that perhaps Egypt would have red lines, that perhaps Sisi would send in tanks in order to deliver aid. Instead, it seems the Egyptian army, instead of forcing aid to go into Gaza, it appears to be, according to satellite images at least, to be constructing something on the border with Rafah. The suggestion is perhaps that they're building a camp through which to receive the Palestinians who will flee Gaza following the Rafah offensive. I think that for Netanyahu, I think the US entertained the prospect that maybe they could force elections to remove Netanyahu. There is an understanding in the White House and indeed amongst US allies that Netanyahu appears to be the obstacle towards a potential ceasefire. Blinken went to Qatar, he went to the other states to try to negotiate some sort of truce. He tried to meet with the IDF commander. Netanyahu refused to let him meet with the IDF commander. Blinken met with Benny Gantz and Yair Lapid. The suggestion was he was trying to get them to force an election to get rid of Netanyahu. Netanyahu responded and said, very interestingly, that he rejects a two-state solution and he rejects elections as well. So there is this sort of sense that given we are where we are, given that the Israelis have reached Rafah, given it's the last stronghold, given that they've gone into yeah, Habibi, don't worry. Given that they've gone into northern Gaza, they went into Khan Yunis, they went into Gaza City, and now Rafah is the last opportunity. I think that a lot of the ideologues in the White House, whether it's John Kirby, whether it's Jake Sullivan, whether it's Blinken, whether it's Biden himself, they believe we're here now. There's a chance for Israel now to annex Gaza. There's a chance for Israel to annex Gaza and have Saudi normalized ties afterwards. There's a chance to annex Gaza and have Sisi take in those Palestinians. Given that now there is this perfect storm that's emerged, why shouldn't Netanyahu be allowed to enter Rafah and to go in and to drive those Palestinians out and potentially annex Gaza itself? So it seems to be that we're looking down at a catastrophe that's taking place. I think the other dynamic as well, and I think this is probably the final dynamic worth mentioning, and we might go into more detail in it later, is that Biden was concerned that the Muslims might punish him in the elections. Biden was concerned that there was this movement growing where Muslims will punish Biden in November. Although from my travels in America, it seems that overwhelmingly the Muslims are inclined to punish Biden. The views expressed are the speaker's own. They're not yours or anybody else's here. And nor the organization that invited me, nor for MAS, nor for any of those. It's Sami's own opinion, basically, to put it in the legal thing. The point that I'm saying is that Biden felt that the Muslim community were isolating him, but he found Muslim leaders to meet. The Democrats, they found a masjid to receive them. They found Muslim community leaders to sit down with who reassured him that all is not lost, that although you committed a genocide, you have time until November to win back some of the Muslim vote. And there was one of them who put out a tweet to that effect as well, that if they show empathy. We saw a prominent media Muslim personality come out and say that I rip my hair out when Muslims are telling me that Trump is going to be worse, suggesting that he's inclined for the Muslims, keep a calm head. Even though Biden committed a genocide, let's not rush. Let's still reward genocide by allowing Biden, because the other guy might be worse for us here in America. I say us. When did I say us? When did I become American? God save the king. I'm sorry. God save the king. I need to go back to London soon. Ya Latif. I can't believe I said us. But in any case, I do speak a bit of American, you know. It's not like, but in any case, the point that I'm saying is that going back to the point, I think Biden has assessed that some Muslims are still willing to vote for Biden despite a genocide. Egypt, instead of sending in tanks to send in aid, it's building a camp to receive Palestinians. The Saudis have insisted that no matter what happens in Gaza, normalization is still on the table. The UAE has asserted that there is no going back on the Abraham Accords no matter what genocide is taking place. King Abdullah of Jordan went to the US, but the Israeli media is reporting that Jordan is also part of the land bridge to bypass the blockade imposed by the Houthis. So if you're Netanyahu sitting in Tel Aviv, billah, or if you're Biden, why not give it a shot? Why not give the Israelis a chance to go into Rafah and seize this unprecedented opportunity to take more, to annex Gaza, to expand the borders of Israel, because this opportunity might not come again.
Jazakallah khair. My next question more so pertains to us. What do you think people in the West, more specifically us in New Jersey, what can we do with what's going on right now? What can we do to gain power, right, and to turn the tide to make it towards supporting the people of Palestine, to show the people and to show all these political leaders that we don't stand for this, right, and that our voice actually matters? What can we do to gain power?
I think that when you look at the picture in America as it stands today, I think the reality is that the elections in November are going to be very tight between Biden and Trump, if they're both on the ballot by November anyway, because the Atlantic published an article yesterday that Biden should be removed as a Democrat candidate, and Trump is going to face this lawsuit in New York. Today, I think the judge ruled he has to pay $340 million in order to, is that okay? Yeah, give that to me. The judges ruled that he has to pay $346 million. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me now? Allahi barak. I think that the picture in America is one in which the data suggests it will be a tight election come November between Biden and Trump. If Biden and Trump are even on the ballot by November. Trump today, a court ruled he has to pay $345 million for inflating his finances to secure loans. It's the first of a series of trials. He may even end up being disqualified before November comes. And there was an article yesterday in the Atlantic which suggested that Biden is not the right nomination for the Democrats. They need to change Biden quickly if they want to win in November. But in the case that it is Trump or Biden, I think the picture does demonstrate that Muslim votes will matter in the November elections, and that if Biden loses the Muslim vote, he stands the potential of losing the entire election. So I think that that's the first part, in that Muslims do have the ability to punish genocide, Joe. The second dynamic is that, according to some reports coming out of Europe, the suggestion is that Biden is more concerned that the Muslims can convince the African Americans to also punish Biden. There was a letter by 13 pastors from the African American churches, that came out 2 days ago that said, we can't convince our congregation to vote for Biden. We can't convince them to reward genocide. And I think what Biden is concerned more than anything else is that although the Muslims will abandon him, the Muslims will also keep being loud and talking about Palestine, and they will keep raising the awareness, and they will keep forcing it to be a headline topic until November, in a way that will continue to shift public opinion away from Biden. I think that Biden, when he sees the shift in public opinion that Muslims have already brought about, you see the polls, he's falling in his support and the like. I think Biden believes that he will be able to recover before November, because Muslims will move on to other issues and they will no longer talk about Gaza and Palestine. They'll start to think with a cool head, between quotation marks. They'll start to think carefully. They'll start to think about, the nice 3-bedroom places that they live in. They'll start to think about, the nice cars that they live in. Is it worth having to share, being in discomfort in these particular areas? and then he believes that those polls will eventually change come September. What he's lost, he will regain. And that's why I think that for Muslims themselves, I think that they have the power to make change. They've clearly shifted public opinion. Under 35s are now increasingly pro-Palestinian. Kamala Harris is Zionist. Her daughter's raising money for Palestine. We've seen those in California, those of the left wing. There was an article in Politico which suggested that the left wing of the Democrat Party may not even vote Biden, even if it brings Trump in power, because they are concerned about supporting genocide and being seen to reward genocide. The point that I'm saying is that the Muslim power is not just only in the vote, it's also in their voice that is shifting American public opinion in a way that is unprecedented. And that's why one of the reasons that Biden is willing to support the attack on Rafah by the Israelis is because he believes that the Muslims are not an organized bloc, and that the Muslims are also flaky. That the Muslims are angry today, but they will support Biden tomorrow. That the Muslims are upset today, but they will forget tomorrow. That the Muslims are not Zionists who are committed to a cause. That the Muslims are not African Americans who are committed to a bloc. That the Muslims are divided because when he looks at some of his Muslim allies as well, he will see, for example, that a Muslim country gave him a fatwa in support of the genocide, in which imams were coming out and saying that make dua for Gaza, but don't talk about it. Make dua for Gaza, but don't mobilize on it. Make dua for Gaza, but don't boycott. Make dua for Gaza, but don't engage in initiatives that will cause disruption because they want to normalize ties later with the Israelis. So we've seen, for Biden says, if I can get a fatwa in this regard, then I don't need to worry too much about the Muslims. The reason why I emphasize this point is to highlight this. When I say that Biden believes Muslims will forget, it doesn't mean Muslims will forget. What I'm saying is Biden is underestimating the Muslim vote. What I'm saying is Biden is underestimating the Muslim organization and underestimating what Muslims might be able to achieve. So when you ask me what power do Muslims have two powers that will completely shake and change the American political system forever. The first power is the vote, in that Muslims are concentrated in the 6 swing states, whether it's Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, and I can't remember the other 2. I think Florida is one of them, and I can't remember the other one. In any case, not only that, also in the local elections, what we're seeing is there are Muslims who are beginning to mobilize, at least what I've seen across my travels in America. I think I'm more American than most people here now, given based on the travels, yeah. But the point I'm saying is that there are some states where they've been able to identify areas in the local elections where they're able to flip the vote. So they see 2 candidates, one who supported genocide, one who didn't. And they rally behind the one who didn't support the genocide in order to punish the one who committed the genocide. Muslims have this power to be able to flip votes. There are actually certain areas in the local elections where you'll find that the last candidate won by a majority of 4,000 in an area with 20,000 Muslims, of which only 3,000 Muslims went to vote. So the Muslims have that ability to vote and use their voting power. But the second, and perhaps in my opinion, more powerful power that the Muslims can deploy is the power of using their voice to convince Americans to abandon Biden. By that, what I mean is, there was an interesting billboard in Chicago which said, we're sending $3.8 billion to Israel, but I can't afford healthcare. We're sending $3.8 billion to Israel, but I can't afford to pay my rent. The point is, there is this communication strategy that is taking place to convince the Americans that they also need to punish genocide. And there was an interesting video by that guy from Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, I can't remember his surname. So he did an interesting video where they've done a sketch where somebody's buying in the supermarket and they say, no, you need to put those eggs back. Why? Because we need to give that money to Israel to commit genocide. We need to give money to Israel oh, we can't afford bananas then because, we need to spend $80 a month sending to Israel so they can kill Palestinians. There's a lot of this rhetoric that is taking place, this voice that is shifting public opinion. So I think that although the Muslim nations are doing nothing and Biden seems to be amenable to an attack on Rafah, that doesn't mean all hope is lost. There's still the ability to punish those who supported genocide.
Jazakallah khair. That was a beautiful answer, Brother Sami. So now I want to shift into the next segment, which was the questions from the audience. So last time we had a lot of questions, and we took a while to answer a lot of them. So now, inshallah, we're gonna be a little tighter on it with 5-minute response for each. So if you turn your attention to the TV screens once again, there's a QR code available for you. All right. So if you'd like to ask a question anonymously, please scan the QR code. But in the meantime, is there anybody who would like to ask to get the starting question? I think we have a hand in the crowd over there.
I behaved today. I tried to keep the answers short.
Go ahead. Tfaddal.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Allah يجزيك حبيبي.
I asked him the question like, shouldn't we penalize, let's say, genocide Joe in the elections because of what he've done, and the community has to go more Republicans. And he told me that the answer is like twofold. We cannot afford to let Trump win because of two reasons. Number one is, if Trump comes in, as he's saying that he's gonna ban all Muslim organizations like the mass that they talk about, MSAs, all the MSAs, he's gonna close out downs. So many things that's gonna bring in the community years back. And if Trump was here, it would have been a lot worse. And the second thing he said that this is gonna divide the community because our African American brothers and sisters, they're always have a lot of history with the Republicans. So to go Republicans, we're gonna lose the support of our brothers. So what is your recommendations? Because really, until now, I'm lost to know. How should we do with the community? Jazakallah.
By the way, that's my dad.
Allah يبارك. Bismillah, mashallah. Same passion, Allah يبارك. I know where he got it from. I think that when it comes to the idea of Republicans or Democrats, I think Muslims are neither Republicans or Democrats. And I actually think that if Muslims had mobilized sooner, we could have actually come up with a strategy whereby you can punish Biden in the presidential and deny Trump the House. And it's still possible. I actually think that the data suggests that if you look at the local areas where you can flip the votes, you can actually make it so that Biden loses the presidency and Trump subsequently comes in. I'm not saying go and vote Trump. Wa'iyadu billah. Listen, I've read some people, they say Sami's telling people to go vote Trump. Wallahi, I dare you to bring any evidence that suggests that. And Yawm al-Qiyamah, I'll ask Allah for you to produce it. Because I ain't forgiving you in this dunya for that. To say that I supported someone like Trump, I'm joking, I forgive them. But I forgive them on the basis, may Allah forgive me for something so horrific. I think that there is actually, the data does suggest that you can punish Biden in the presidential and deny Trump the House. For that, it requires organization at the local level, an organization which I think to date, the Muslim community has yet to display an ability to be able to do so. Primarily, and I'll give you an example. There is an area where there are two candidates. One supported genocide, one was ceasefire from day one. When the Muslims were debating, should we support the one who didn't vote genocide, somebody stood up and said, they support LGBT, I'm not voting for them. So the other one said, yeah, but the other one supported genocide. The other one said, no, the other one supported LGBT. So what should we do? We should just do nothing. So what, Biden comes to power or Trump comes to power? We're both screwed. I ain't voting for somebody who supported LGBT. I thought about this for a while, and I'd like to tell you a story. And I'm not justifying it, or me giving a fatwa or saying anything. I'm just giving you a story for you to consider. In the last UK elections in the motherland, they send their salam. For those who know the UK, you'll know that when you look at the political map, there's an area in the north from coast to coast. It's called the Red Wall. The reason it's called the Red Wall is because Labour, they dominate those areas. Conservatives never win in those areas. Labour for the last 100 years have won in those areas. We're talking from Liverpool across all the way through Manchester towards Leeds and then Hull. They're not nice cities to visit. Liverpool, okay, maybe a little bit. Manchester, yeah. If you go to Hull, I don't know. In any case, no disrespect to Hull. Shout out. In the last election, as a result of Brexit, the Conservatives finally managed to win seats in the Red Wall, unprecedented for the last 100 years. The reason they won those votes was not because people voted Conservative because they liked the Conservative. They voted Conservative in protest at Labour, which was against Brexit. They said, because Labour is against Brexit, this is something that so offends my sensibilities, I'm going to go and vote for the opponents to make sure Labour can't win so that they can't keep us with Europe. When the Conservatives won in the Red Wall, the Conservatives went and asked the local population, why did you vote for us in the Red Wall? And not a single person said, because I like you. They all said, listen, I didn't vote for you, I voted against the other guys, and when the next election comes, I'm going back to vote for the party that I like. The Conservatives were so eager that they won those votes in the Red Wall, they wanted to keep them. What do you think they did? They started adjusting their policies one by one. They started saying, what is it that you want that will let us keep your vote? What is it that we can do to make sure that we can transform this protest vote into something that means that you vote for me in the next election and you don't go back to the Labour Party? What is it that you want? You want more social housing, which we resent? We'll give you more social housing. You want more this? We'll give you. You want more this? All why? Because they realize that those votes that they got that deliver them to victory, they know they're losing those votes back in the next election, so they are now mobilizing to make concessions in order to keep those votes. So that guy who you're voting for, who might be pro-LGBT, may not actually ram it down your throats because he's so excited at having won when he shouldn't have won because of the protest vote. He might actually say that to keep the Muslim vote, I need to tone down on my LGBT stuff just to make sure I can keep these votes for the next elections. I think that sometimes Muslim communities perhaps don't appreciate the idea of leverage and how to use that leverage in order to extract concessions for the Muslim community, and they see it as something horrific because they see it as something of a compromise. But in this scenario, let's suppose the LGBT candidate turns around and says, I'll tone it down if it means that you support me in the next election. Did you compromise in anything at all in this regard? He's not ramming it down your throats, he's not forcing it on you, he's not pushing it towards you, and you supported genocide. Is this acceptable to the community? I don't know, that's for you to decide. But the reason why I'm saying it is that while Muslims don't have the ability to deliver candidates, they do have the ability to decide the vote regarding two candidates. While they don't have the ability to put someone forward, they do have the ability to decide who wins between the two. And I think that it would be very interesting to see if Muslims can mobilize in that regard, because you mentioned Trump, but imagine Trump wins the presidency, but there's a house that rejects everything that he tries to do. Suddenly you have a check on Donald Trump with regards to the Congress itself. I think that much is possible. But I think the other argument, which in my opinion is one that convinces me even more, is I do not understand how a genocide can be live streamed. Ethnic cleansing can be live streamed. How you can watch a video of a man with a garbage bag shouting on the streets, crying and saying, Ya ibadallah, has anybody seen his hand? I gathered his legs, I found his torso. I found his arms and I found his head. I'm missing the hand, don't let me bury my son without his hand. I don't understand how someone can watch a video of a child as young as 3 years old with 3 of their limbs amputated, and they were amputated without anesthesia. I don't understand how someone can watch a child, and for those of you who don't have kids, maybe you don't appreciate it as much. When you have kids, the video hits 100 times harder. I'll be honest with you, you don't know what it feels like until you have children. When you see a child as young as my Suleiman, who's 4 years old, wandering through the streets, crying out, where's mama, where's baba? And their mama and baba are dead, but the Palestinians don't want to tell the child. So they lie to the child and say, your parents are alive, but that child is clever, like my Suleiman. He's seen the corpses of his parents when they're going by, and he says, I know you're lying to me, I know my parents are dead. I don't understand how a Muslim community can watch Biden cut funding to UNRWA the day after the ICJ rules Israel must stand trial for genocide, because he wants to remove the backbone that allows Palestinians to survive, to force the Palestinians to leave Gaza. He's removed the funding because UNRWA is the only way that Palestinians can get the sustenance that they need in order to stay in those areas. I don't understand how Muslims can watch John Kirby come out, and when they ask him about the genocide, he says bluntly, we will continue to give everything Israel needs in order to continue what it's doing in Gaza. I do not understand how a Muslim can see all of that, how a Muslim can see that 30,000 Palestinians, 12,500 children slaughtered, massacred by the Israelis for no other reason than they want to annex Gaza and take it and make it part of this somehow fake country that they've created. I don't understand how a Muslim sees all of that and then turns around and looks at me and says, but Sami, what about Trump? I don't understand how a Muslim can see somebody who committed genocide, عيني عينك, قدام, in front of the whole world, and how they managed to bend the international order in all sorts of deformed ways, like it's some origami as opposed to a system of law. And the Muslim turns around to me and says to me, Sami, I know 30,000 Palestinians were killed. I know that their limbs were blown off. I know I saw the mother weeping over her son, and she was saying, why does his body have to be like this? Why did they blow his head off? If only he died in a way where his head was kept there. I don't understand how you can watch Mu'taz Azayza and Plastia recording their own genocide and ethnic cleansing live. I don't understand how an ummah can look at this and consider a possibility where the people who perpetrated it can get away with it. And that's why I think that Biden, in many ways, is it perhaps that he understands what the Muslim ummah is like? That it has no dignity, that it has no karama, that they are humiliated for a reason, because you can kill 30,000. But the hypothetical scares them more than the reality. The hypothetical of what Trump might do, even though they survived 4 years of Trump. The hypothetical of what Trump might do, even though they already lived through 4 years of Trump. And mashallah, you look like you came out okay. Even though they survived the 4 years of Trump, the hypothetical of what Trump might do is more frightening than the reality of what Biden did. They tell me that Trump will result in an increase of Islamophobia, and that will put pressure on us. Islamophobia has increased 300% under Joe Biden. You're feeling it on the streets. Wadi'a was 6 years old and he was killed. Under whose administration was he killed? You know the tragic story about Wadi'a, what it is? When the landlord came in after being radicalized by the media and Joe Biden's administration that kept insisting that what Israel was doing to the Palestinians was correct. When the landlord went in and stabbed his mother, you know the child was so used to the landlord, he called him Uncle Joe and went, hello Uncle Joe, hello Uncle Joe. And you know, astaghfirullah, what his mother said, the last thing she heard him say was, the boy goes, hugs Uncle Joe, and Uncle Joe takes the knife, stabs him 26 times, the 6-year-old. And Wadi', his last words are, oh no. Wadi' is killed not under Trump, he's under Biden. And it takes Biden 5 days to give condolences for it. And the ummah wants to tell me that it's going to be worse under Donald Trump. They tell me Biden's going to censor, that Trump is going to censor the campuses. He's going to close down the MSAs and censor the campuses. Are the campuses not being censored? You guys are in university, you guys, or college as you call it. You guys are in college now. Are your campuses not being censored already under Biden? And if Biden is allowed to win a second term after committing genocide, what do you think will be the status of Muslims in America after that? For the foreseeable future, it will be that you can trample on this community because they will never stand up for principle. They will only stand up for comfort. Because Biden will say, you know, they have a hadith. They got a hadith and they say their prophet told them that one day they'll be like the foam of the sea. Because they'll be afflicted with wahan in their hearts, love of comfort. And they won't be a people who like to struggle. I'm not denouncing the question. I get Trump is frightening. I know the 4 years are going to be difficult. But yeah, ibadallah, surely some dignity and some karama here. If Biden is already going to be worse, and Trump is going to be worse, and this democracy produced two choices, a genocider and a racist, let me punish the one who committed the crime and get ready to punish the one I think might commit the crime later.
That was powerful. And that's not doing it justice, b'saraha. Next question is, there are a lot of questions regarding the vote. I presume maybe it's still unclear. Who do I vote for? Pretty much, that's still the questions coming in. For the better of two evils. If not Biden, then what? Can you break this down for us a bit more plainly? What is the strategy? What are we doing this election? Are we even voting at all?
The Arabs, they say, Al-Gharib yajib an yakuna adiban. The one who is coming from afar has to be respectful. And he should not interfere in internal affairs, which is hypocritical for me to say now. But in any case, I don't know where your vote should go. I only know where it shouldn't go. I don't know how you guys want to decide where you guys want to vote. I'll be honest with you. I went to North Carolina, and the Muslims, they said loud and proud, we're voting for Donald Trump. I was like, Allah! And they went, dude, he made us richer. If we're going to suffer, let's suffer with more money. Why should we suffer with less money? I had these, no, but it's just, when they said it, it reminded me, I have my younger brother, Yusuf. Yusuf speaks fluent Japanese. He lives in Tokyo. I spoke about him last time I was here. And when you go to Tokyo, it's a surreal experience. Yusuf would just talk Japanese fluent, you know, oh, so desu ka? Do you want ketchup with that? And I'll be like, yeah, I'll have some ketchup with that. He'd be like, ketchup, dude. I'm like, that's not Japanese, Yusuf. You're winding me up. But Yusuf, mashallah, successful businessman. He's not politically inclined, but he loves business, and what he touches turns to gold, mashallah. So one day I said to Yusuf, he was talking about all these investments he's making and what he's buying, what he's selling. So I told him, yeah, Yusuf, الدنيا دي راهي ماشي فلوس. Like this dunya is more than money. You know that, and I tried to tell him, you know, with dunya, you know, there's more to this, and there's this, there's that. And he let me finish, and he went to me, Sami, I love you, and I appreciate everything you say, and you're right. But I'd rather cry in a Mercedes than in your Toyota Yaris. The North Carolina people reminded me of this. It's, listen, we're going to suffer the next 4 years. We're going to suffer. We're going to, you know, struggle, whether it's Trump or Biden. Yeah, Sami, and I want to struggle in a Mercedes. I'm a truck driver who made a lot of money under Trump, and Biden ruined it for me with these policies and the way that he ruined the economy. I'm not telling you how to vote, because in reality, I don't know what is the best way to vote in the presidential elections. But I would also encourage you, the message I really want to deliver is this. It won't just be decided on the presidential election. The Zionists don't focus only on the presidential election. They focus on the Congress. They focus on the Senate. They focus on the local election. They focus even on the council. Let me tell you a story about Huntington in Long Island. And it's a long island. I drove it. Listen, my flight from Toronto to New York was 50 minutes. My drive from LaGuardia to where I was staying was 1 hour, 45 minutes.
Was it the drive or was it the traffic?
Traffic. It was listen, the traffic is horrible. You know, like astaghfirullah al-azim. Like, and your public transport is, I can't lie to you. I know you guys have your subway and stuff like it, but it doesn't compare to the London Underground. I grew up lambasting our London Underground. You know, the tube. But wallahi, when I came to America, I went back. When my friends complained, I told them, guys, say alhamdulillah for the ni'mah you're in. Because you don't know, America, they don't know what public transport looks like. You know, like wallah, there is a brother sitting here, he came to one of the talks, Miskeen, it took him 3 hours to get there through public transport.
We get entertainment, at least I'm sure.
What I will say is that, so there's a story in Huntington where the council aren't really interested in politics. They have no idea about Palestine and Israel. They have no idea about the issues. But they still issued a statement on October 8th after October 7th. Why? There was a deli next to them run by an Israeli who put out Israeli flags and hounded them to come up with a statement. The Muslims didn't do anything. The Muslims could have hounded the council at the same time to say, you know, show some. Eventually the council, after 4 weeks, the council repeated the statement that we stand with Israel. That's when the Muslims moved. And the council member told them bluntly, he said, dude, these guys are shouting in my ear. You guys are nowhere to be seen. These guys move, they mobilize quickly over every tiny local issue. When they go to the council, 500 of them turn up, 2 Muslims turn up. When they go to a school board meeting, they turn up in their numbers, only 2 of us turn up. And then the Muslim says, why are we in the situation that we're in? And that's why I think that we're thinking not about presidential election, about Biden and Trump. But in my opinion, the more significant battle is actually at the local level here in New Jersey. It's here at the local level that you need to identify where you can make the difference and where you can rally to flip those votes. For those of you who think, Sami, all this sounds vague, give me something more specific. All it takes is to ask Sheikh Google, hafadhahullah wa ra'ah, and get the results of your local elections from the last election. Find the flip vote. What's the majority? Did somebody win by 4,000, 5,000, 3,000? Then calculate the demographics of that area. How many Muslims are in that area? Is it enough to flip that particular vote? If it is, ask Sheikh TikTok and go make a video and do the hashtag of the area and say, guys, this is how you can make the difference in your local area. And then when November comes and they realize that Biden has lost the election, but the Republicans realize, wait a minute, we don't have the power that we're supposed to have because we won the presidency, but underneath these Muslims, they moved and they did something. They did like a, I don't know what that is, but anyway. And that's the point that I'm having about the engagement. And I'll finish on this particular point. Ibadallah, when I read the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, there's something fascinating about the first 13 years. There's actually a section where they say that every Hajj season, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam would go to all of the 29 tribes, I think it was, that used to visit Mecca. He would go to each tent trying to see who would hear his message. And he would talk to anybody to try to convince them of his message. The point is, the Prophet ﷺ never used to forego any avenue through which to make a change or through which to make an impact. We forego a million avenues. The Prophet ﷺ would sit with the poor man and the rich man trying to convince them of his message in order to make change in his society. We're the kind of people who would have said, Ya Rasulullah, you're wasting your time with those people. We need to think big, Ya Rasulullah. We need to think huge. Even though Allah said, وَمَن يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ, that those who do even an atom of good deed, Allah sees it. And that's why I think, to be honest, I always pose the question. I'm like, whenever you speak to these council members, they will tell you apologetically, dude, I don't know anything about Palestine, Israel. These Zionists just came shouting at me. The question that in my mind goes, is not you ignoramus, at least go research the topic. My point is, where were the Muslims running in from the other side shouting at him? I look at the comments, you know, when they criticize like a Muslim speaker for saying something about Israel. I look at the comments, and most of them are Zionist comments. Where are the Muslim comments on social media commenting and saying, you so-and-so, things that I'm not allowed to say because I'm on stage. But you know what I mean, like commenting and you know, raising and that kind of stuff as well. I think that while Muslims, you know, your question was, where should Muslims vote? Who should they vote for? Vote for the one who didn't support genocide. If you have two candidates running for Congress, vote for the one who didn't support genocide. If you have two people running for state assembly, vote for the one who didn't support genocide. If you're looking at the local council, who should you vote for? Vote for the one who didn't support genocide. And let the system understand that Gaza was so important that a whole thousands and millions of Muslims rushed to the polls just to punish genocide, and see the difference that has as it filters through to the top and they hear the message loud and clear, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. I want to open the floor now for any sisters who would like to ask a question. Is there any questions from the sisters then? Hello, sister. Do you have a microphone for her?
Okay.
When I share a video about Palestine on social media,
They give me 3 months penalty. Close my 2 accounts, Facebook 2 account on Instagram. I'm keep sharing. Stop. If they keep closing, I'm gonna open new one and I'm sharing. And I try to comment too, but they are so enemy. I can't believe, but I'm crying. I can't eat well. I can't, you know, psychologically, I'm so emotional at home. And I can't stay far away because some people say it's too no good for you to watch all the time, listening the news, all those videos you're watching, it's no good for you. But I can't stay far away. I can't. I have to. I care about them. And when I pray all the time, I'm praying for them. Because Allah's going to ask for us all this, each of us. I know this. That's why always trying to do myself what I can do. Always I'm going to, you know, when they have an organization, I'm just going to say this. All social media on their hand, doesn't matter what you're saying, doesn't matter what you're sharing about that, that's your fault, you're doing bad things. Like, you know, my English is not perfect, I'm sorry.
perfect, it's perfect, mashallah.
Sorry.
It's better than the Americans, but yeah, go on.
I'm sorry. Sorry. Yani, I mean, I just want to say it, what I feel like, what I'm seeing. That's all. Thank you.
I think first of all, we should give you a round of applause because Netanyahu is targeting you. Your account is so important, Netanyahu wants it closed. Your account is so important, Blinken wants it closed. Your account is so important, the Zionists are so worried about it. They said we have to close her account because her voice is something that is annoying, it's frustrating us. So subhanallah, honestly, mashallah, this is a good example of how there's no such thing as an ordinary Muslim. Every voice matters, every voice is having an impact. Now, I don't know what content you're sharing that's making you get banned, but in any case, the point that I'm saying is at least The fact that they're responding in this manner means that they're worried about the voice that you're raising, and therefore if your voice is frustrating them, the conclusion should be, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it's working and it's annoying them, keep doing what you're doing. And I like the idea of setting up different accounts. I need to set up a couple of different accounts as well in terms of doing that kind. But the point is that one thing that is worth noting, the head of Meta for North Africa and Middle East, he gave an interview to Al Jazeera like a few weeks ago. And they were asking about the algorithm and about shadow banning and how to bypass shadow ban and the closing of the accounts. He said the reality is that you can shadow ban a couple of thousand, you can shadow ban maybe 100,000, but when millions and millions and millions are talking about the same issue, it's impossible for any social media company to keep talking. And that's why I think that we need to mobilize as a community. And I don't say that from an airy-fairy unity kind of way. I mean that if they shut down your account, they're not shutting down everybody else's. You may have fallen on that hurdle, but you set up a new account, tomorrow it'll be somebody else's account, and your account will be able to keep going as well. The fact is we keep moving in numbers, we keep moving together, keep being loud together, keep raising the awareness. What Biden is gambling on is that as months pass by, instead of 1.9 billion talking about Palestine, it will go down to 1 billion, and then 500 million, and then 100 million, and then 50 million, and then 1 million, because the rest of the accounts will be talking about what do we do about Trump, what do we do about what happens next. That's why it's important to push through this barrier and this heartbreak and this despair that you feel, because that sign of the heartbreak means that you're feeling the struggle. And when you feel the struggle, it means you're in the middle of the battle. And if you're in the middle of the battle, it means it hasn't been decided yet. And if it hasn't been decided yet, it means you can still win it. And if it means you can still win it, therefore there is still light on the other side. And therefore everything suggests that we shouldn't pull back. We need to keep moving forward. And that's why I think that last week, one of the spokesmen of the Israelis met with 12 TikTok influencers. I didn't know their names. They're not influencing me on my TikTok, but in any case. And they're offering them a lot of money to talk about Israel and to show a new face of Israel. Why? They are concerned that they've lost the monopoly over the narrative. One thing that I will say is this. For those of you feeling the pressure, for those of you feeling the backlash, for those of you concerned about the backlash that's taking place, let me tell you, it's not coming from a position of strength. It's coming from a position of weakness, because they did not anticipate that their monopoly over the narrative would be smashed by ordinary Muslims. They expected that you would listen to the fatwa from Saudi Arabia that told you to be quiet. They expected that you would be quiet and go to the UAE and take selfies with the Sheikh Zayed Mosque and listen to their scholars who are telling you not to boycott. Instead, they found that these nation states, with their powers that they were relying on to get you to be quiet, you were emphatically ignoring them because you were following what your own conscience and fitrah was crying out for you to do. So McDonald's has come out and said that we're suffering as a result of the boycott. Starbucks' share price has dropped as a result of the boycott. These Muslims who Muslims thought were insignificant turned out they are significant. The ICJ ruling that Muslims said had no impact. The multi-billion-dollar Japanese companies are now cutting ties with multi-billion-dollar Israeli companies. Israeli press is now saying that the ICJ ruling is going to have lasting impact on our tech industry, which is our most lucrative industry, because companies are too scared to invest in Israel because they are worried that Israel will be found guilty of genocide, and therefore they will be liable and they will be sued by Muslims in the UK courts and in the US courts. The Israelis are concerned that when Muslim lawyers took a court case in Oakland in order to try to sue Biden for using taxpayer money to fund the genocide, they are terrified that although the judge ruled that he doesn't have jurisdiction, he ruled on a technicality and said in his judgment that this case is close to having jurisdiction here in the US, and that the reality is that Israel is probably committing a genocide. And he said it's the hardest ruling, suggesting that if they tweak the legal argument slightly, then Biden can be sued in the US for using taxpayer money against genocide. Israel is concerned that when Eli Cohen went to the EU to present a plan to create an artificial island to put the Palestinians on, Eli Cohen was stunned because the 27 member states looked at him in horror and said, are we really sitting in a room where somebody is presenting an idea of creating an artificial island to put Palestinians? And Eli Cohen was horrified that they were horrified. He was horrified and said, when did you allies start questioning us? When did you allies start doubting us? When did you allies start asking us what we're doing and what we're doing? What is this behavior? What is this thing that suddenly is coming about? Israel is concerned that as a result of your voice, as a result of you moving, as a result of you mobilizing, they are concerned that in this battle that should have been resolved quickly in their favor, this battle is dragging on, so much so that the EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell came out and he said, criticizing the US, how can you say you're against genocide and give them weapons at the same time? Your words do not match your actions. The Israelis are worried that while Biden is promising to give them weapons, Macron calls for a ceasefire. The Deputy Prime Minister of Belgium is calling for sanctions on Israel. Spain is saying it's ready to recognize a Palestinian state. They are concerned that all of this shift is moving and it's taking place. And I'll finish on this point. Muslims, do not doubt or do not undermine these victories, however small you might think they may be. For the Israelis, they think it's huge. And do not doubt and say that these victories don't matter because the genocide is still ongoing. For wallahi, if you open the book of the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you will find that when the Muslims were persecuted in the first 13 years of the da'wah, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam made a dua. He said, Allahumma reinforce Islam with Ahad al-Umarain, with one of the two Umars. And when Umar ibn Khattab became Muslim, the Muslims celebrated a huge victory even though they were persecuted the next day, because they determined that victory as being a turning point that would eventually lead to something greater. So just as we are praying that the global public opinion shifts in our favor, that's our version of Allahumma bless us with Ahad al-Umarain. Bless us with a public opinion that is in our favor, that will create an environment that allows us to punish those who committed genocide. That's why we see Americans increasingly saying that I will punish genocide, Joe. It's because you're moving and you're appreciating those victories. Don't undermine those victories. Keep going as you are. And for those of you who think that you're only affecting America, you've all seen the Saudi statement that came out and said that we won't normalize with Israel unless there's a Palestinian state. Now, personally, I think it's absolute nonsense, because if you're a country that brought Shakira to dance on the night of the ground offensive, that brought Jared Kushner to give a keynote speech in the Davos in the Desert Forum 4 weeks into the genocide, that every 2 days you keep talking about normalization is still possible, normalization is still possible when Gaza are being slaughtered, when you're part of the land bridge to bypass the blockade, you can't tell me a couple of sentences and suddenly it's going to change everything. The reason I mentioned the statement is to show you that the statement was not made for the Israelis or the Americans. It was made out of panic that you were criticizing Saudi. It was directed at you, not Israel. They were telling the Israelis, I am not against normalization, but they're getting louder. They're pointing fingers at me. They're exposing what I'm doing. They were supposed to be quiet because they don't want fitna in the land of the two holy mosques. Now these people are saying, no, we need to call them out. I need to give them something, a statement, to keep them quiet, throw them a bone so that they can get off my back, because these people will threaten my ability to rule here in Saudi Arabia. Ibadallah, you're in a blessed position that probably no other population in the ummah is in. You're in a position to punish the perpetrator of genocide. You're in a position to influence the rest of the world. You're in a position to influence the relationship between Europe and America. You're in a position to raise and shift public opinion in America. And you're also in a position to bring about the entrenchment of the most unprecedented changes with regards to the narrative on Palestine and Israel that Israel is so concerned about, that today Netanyahu says, please don't talk about Palestinian state, because it's like rewarding what Hamas did. And the reality is that the Americans are trying to find a way to appease you because they're worried about a power that you will use. I'm asking you to see that power. I'm asking you to use it. I'm asking you to deploy it. I'm asking you to appreciate it. And I'm asking you to stop saying to me that you have no power when Blinken is spending billions just to make sure you don't use that power.
Jazakallah khair. All right, next question. How should Muslims in New Jersey support the Muslims in the swing state? How do we develop countrywide political networks? And how do we mobilize? And do we need Muslim APACs? Should we go one by one, or?
First of all, I don't know of a place called New Jersey. I think it's New Jersey. That's first of all. So let's give it the proper names here, Jama'at al-Khair. Sheikh Yasser Fahmy is not here to lambast me for it, so it's good. I want to tell you just a very short story. It's not long by any stretch of the imagination. In East London, we have a constituency called Ilford North. Ilford North, the Member of Parliament is a guy called Wes Streeting. Wes Streeting is tipped to be the next leader of the Labour Party in the next 10 years. When the Muslims in that constituency are about 35%, so large number. Wes Streeting won by a 5,000 majority in an area with about 30,000 Muslims. When the Muslims got together, they identified that this is a constituency where we can punish the MP who supported genocide. The problem was, as we're used to in the community, when you gather 10 imams in a room, it doesn't always work out very well. When you gather 10 different organizations in the room, we've all been there. So eventually, one group of people got frustrated. I took off to America. They were just like, Sami, running away. I said, no, I just think the Americans can punish Biden, whereas here we're still judging how powerful we are. And you know, I get to go to America, why not? So one group called the Red Bridge Community Action Group, they decided, we're going to get together and do something. So they said, guys, do we know anybody in our community who wants to run against Wes Streeting? 3 people, they said, we want to run. They said, okay, in our masjid, we're going to host a hustings. And whoever wants to come, they can come. Hustings, for those who don't know, it's 3 candidates on the stage. And they try to argue why they should be the candidate. And then in the end, you all vote for one of those candidates to represent you. So they announced it. 250 people turned up. 3 hours and a half, hustings, debate. And they decided to support a Palestinian girl called Layan Muhammad, a young Palestinian activist. The moment it was announced on social media that they had put Layan Muhammad forward, the rest of the community went, Ala barakatillah, everybody behind Layan, yalla. When Wes Streeting saw the reaction of the community in supporting Layan, because these brave minority decided to move, so now the community couldn't bicker anymore, the opportunity was in front of them, they all went to support them. Wes Streeting went the next day on LBC and called for a ceasefire. He went the next day, why? And everybody joked underneath the comments, even non-Muslims, they said Wes Streeting is terrified about his 5,000 majority, and that's why he's come out and called for a ceasefire, and Layan is gathering momentum. When the other constituencies where Muslims are saw what Red Bridge did, they started replicating it in their own areas. Saying, khalas, we've spent 2 months bickering between ourselves. Khalas, forget the bickering. Let's all start, some of us just start our own initiative and wait for the community to follow. The reason why I say this is that New Jersey might not be a swing state. And bear in mind, I don't have the data for New Jersey. Primarily because none of you has offered it to me. And when I ask you, do you have the data for New Jersey? Everybody looks at me blankly and says, how do I get the data? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. That's all I can say. But in the event that you can't be bothered to get the data and you want to help the swing states, I was in Texas and there were a group of people who said, we're gathering money for a pot of money to send people for 2 weeks to those swing states to lend manpower to those who are campaigning to make sure that they are able to deliver the message effectively. I met a group of students in San Jose, in California, who said to me, we can't make a difference in California, but we've come up with a set of narratives that other states can use, such as, we spend 3.8 billion on Israel, but I can't even afford healthcare. We're crafting this and we're lending our videography skills to help them to create these videos that they can spread on social media in order to convince the non-Muslim opinion how to mobilize and how to use their vote as well. I met tech guys at Silicon Valley in the Bay Area who are saying, Sami, we managed to lobby to get Zionists removed from the overseeing body so that less accounts get shut down or the like. The reality is everybody in the environment is starting to move and starting to do things. You're asking about New Jersey. New Jersey, get the data. You need the information first and foremost, and then decide what you can do in this area. And mashallah, the New Jersey community also has money. Americans have money. When I see a fundraiser that starts at $5,000, come to London, try and start $5,000, and you'll appreciate the ni'mah that Allah has given you and the rizq. May Allah increase you. Allahumma, I'm not saying any hasad. The houses that I saw in the US, for example, I've been to Texas. I know Texas, everything is bigger. When I went back to London, my Sumaya, she saw me, she said, welcome home. And I went, she said to me, Sami, what's wrong with you? I told her, I feel claustrophobic. You haven't seen what I've seen in America. The point that I'm saying, the point that I'm saying is that the community doesn't lack resources. The community does not lack resources. The community lacks a strategy. And I'll finish just on this point to highlight sometimes the attitudes regarding strategy. Muslims are the #1 givers of charity, right? Even though only 20% of aid is actually getting into Gaza. but we're still pumping money into charity. I have a theory why. It's because no one is brave enough to invest in the long-term alternative. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that Allah loves the hand that gets his rizq. And that hand is better than the hand that takes charity. When somebody comes with an initiative for an institution or an initiative for something that is intangible, you know, to train people in or train people in videography or train people in a number of different skills or to set up new businesses or the like, we tend to invest the first 100K. If he fails the first time, we not only not give him 100K, we tell the whole community, don't invest in this failure. Don't give him any more money. Whereas the Zionists will invest in him 3-4 times. The reason why I'm saying is that the community has resources, but I wonder if we're spending it in the best way. The community has resources. I wonder how willing we are to gamble, not gamble because it's haram, but how willing we are to invest in strategy, even if we can't measure the outcome in a way that we measure it with charity or in a way that we measure it in other things as well. Do we have the appetite for that kind of thing? And the reason why I say that is, we need to also think after November. So after, inshallah, when we punish genocide, Joe, inshallah, we're saying the next 4 years are going to be difficult with Donald Trump, right? Are we investing in training for the next generation of media personalities that we can send to defend us in the mainstream? Are we investing in the next generation of political analysts to send out? Or are we investing in the next generation of venture capitalists? I met with a few brothers. They have a lovely app that helps people get off smoking and alcohol. And it's a successful app. They got huge funding for it. It's a multi-million-dollar company now. But they said something very interesting. They said to me, Sami, you know what we find fascinating? They said, here in America, mashallah, they have money, they have resources. But when you go to venture capitalists to find investment, it's all Zionists. Muslims don't venture in those industries. Muslims don't try to get involved in those industries. And I said, maybe Zionists just have more resources. They're like, no, Muslims have more resources. But Muslims only choose to give charity. They don't choose to invest in their community. Muslims only choose to invest in charity. They don't choose to invest in building institutions. A Muslim will give money for a masjid, but won't give money to institutions. A Muslim will give money to charity. They won't give money into training the youth for the next generation. And even when they're training their youth, they train them in only 3 industries: law, medicine, and engineering. Whereas the Zionists is training them in all these different. And that's why I think that moving forward over the next 4 years, I'm not telling you what you should do. I'm telling you to just broaden the horizon just a little bit. Let's ask ourselves, what are we lacking as a community to compete with the Zionists? Ask yourselves, what are we lacking? And ask yourselves, do we have the resources to plug those holes? And what you'll find is those next 4 years will be as if you make the achievement of the next 20 years. And that's the point I want to make. What can you do here in New Jersey? You can do a lot of things. When people ask me that question, at the end of February, we're approaching March. The primaries are March the 5th. You're asking the question, end of February, you've had 3 months to think about it. You had 3 months. And still, we're still talking about this. What can we do? Ibadallah, I know you're an intelligent lot. I'm an information wars guy. I'm not saying I have the solution. I'm saying one of you does. Speak up. And community, when you hear them speak up, I don't know why I'm pointing at the men, I'm pointing at sisters as well. When you speak up, community, go and lend their support. For maybe they have the solution. Maybe there's a Salman al-Farisi here, where before the trench, they didn't know how to dig trenches. Salman al-Farisi came up with the idea. Maybe there's Salman al-Farisi over here who's going to give us a solution, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. So this next question comes from one of the youth. They say, Assalamu alaikum. Can you tell us how to navigate spaces like colleges and universities where we are being censored and called anti-Semitic?
I think that those on the campuses have the most fiercest fight of any group within our community at this moment in time. I went to Canada, and I didn't realize, I thought Canada was going to be the easiest trip, but I can't lie, like Canada is fascism compared to, you know, what US, I landed in New York and I went, Alhamdulillah, I'm back. And then I said, what do you mean you're back? Back is London, ya Sami. Taqillah. You're falling too much in love with America, Sami. You need to go back and reset, you know. The campuses are struggling, it is true. But I also think on the campuses, you're actually winning as well. The reason why the Zionists are trying to clamp down on you as well is because they are terrified that your voices are getting louder. But also, there's something brave about this generation of students who are in those campuses in the way that they keep going regardless of the crackdown and regardless of the way that the events keep getting cancelled over technicalities like there's not enough security. What I will say to those who are on the campuses, arm yourselves with the knowledge to push back against those accusations. Whether it's anti-Semitism, understand that it was the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam who came and established the Medina covenant that protected the Jews and said that we will fight with the Jews against anyone who oppresses them. Understand it's Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu who brought the Jews back to Jerusalem after the Romans kicked them out. Understand it's Salah ad-Din Ayyubi who brought the Jews back after the Crusaders had kicked them out. Understand it's Sultan Suleiman who sent the ships to Spain to take in the Jews after Isabella massacred them and kicked them out of Spain. Understand that it's the Muslims who during the Holocaust, after 6 million Jews were gassed by anti-Semitic Europe, understand that the Jews, they came to the shores of Palestine with these big banners, please don't do to us what the Europeans did to us. Understand your history and learn it and learn to convey it. Put it in your TikToks, put it in your Instagram, put it in your Twitter, put it in your open letters denouncing the universities. Make your protests loud. Write your letters to your presidents. Do your protests and sit-ins in some of those rooms. I admit I was rowdy at university. It's true. Sometimes when I look back on it, I think, yeah, maybe you're a bit too rowdy. Yes. But sometimes too rowdy is a good thing because you calm down later. I like to think I'm a calm person today. What are you laughing for? That was harsh. But the point that I'm saying is that on the campuses, keep going. You are the ones raising your voices because what they're terrified of. And let me put it blunt this way. One of the reasons that universities tend to cancel your talks is not because they believe you're wrong. It's because the Zionists are much louder. So you community members as well, those of you who aren't in college or university, you need to also be writing to these universities as well. You need to be embarrassing them online. You need to be atting them on social media and saying, how dare you cancel these events. You need to lend your support to those student campuses as well, because what I realized when I was in Canada is when they tried to get my event canceled, the campuses were able to summon the Zionist community, who were able to summon the Zionist journalists, who were able to get articles published in national newspapers just to target the students on campuses. In other words, they're a community who are united with each other. I think we need to show a bit more support for each other. We need to reinforce one another. Because to be honest, one of the reasons why it breaks my heart when I say these things is that in reality, I'm not asking you to go to Mount Kilimanjaro. All I'm asking you to do is pick up the phone and just tweet. Pick up the phone and write a letter. And not only that, for you tech guys, let me give you an example. You know, in the UK, when we realized that a lot of people wanted to write letters but didn't know what to write in the letters, do you know what some of the younger brothers ended up doing? They ended up setting up an AI website where the AI, all you would do is you would put your postcode in or your zip code. You would put your zip code in. And the AI would read your zip code and fill out the email with the email of your local representative. And it would write the same letter, but every time you refresh the site, it would change the format of the letter so that it would be different. And it would change the subject title. So it would be the same topic, but it would be a newly crafted letter, which meant that people could literally go put their thing. All they needed to do was put their zip code in and put their email in and click send. Tech guys, where you at? Yani saraha yani. All this effort for Google, not enough for the community. All this effort for Meta and not enough. Where are these apps like? Come on, bismillah. You know, I was about to say bouge, like in French. Bouge, move, you know, bougie. But I realized that it would be lost on some of you guys over here. But in any case, like move. Like my point is there's so much you can do. That there's no such thing as a bad idea. And there's a really wonderful quote. I'll finish on this. They say, how can you expect the unexpected to happen if you don't do the unexpected? How can you expect change to happen if you don't do something that is different? So that's why I think there's no such thing as a bad idea. Just do something. And if you have a good idea, community support them. You don't always need to believe that their idea is going to succeed. There are a lot of ideas. I'll be honest with you. When my wife first came to me and she said to me, Sami, let's set up Halal Travel Guide and take people around the world and show them and reconnect memories of the Ummah. I said to her, I bluntly, I told her, Sumayya, these Muslim community, I know them. Allah humiliated them for a reason. They're not ambitious. When they go on holiday, they only go Morocco, Turkey, Dubai, and Malaysia. That's all they go. They're not brave. They're not like for the guys we went to at university. They want to go Brazil. They want to go Argentina. They want to go China. Like Muslims aren't like that. You know, they don't. And she was like to me, no, but Sami, I promise you, it's a big market. It's $250 billion. It's whatever. I told her, Sumayya, you don't know what these people are like. It turns out Sumayya was right and I was wrong. The only reason I agreed to go along with her idea was because the week before, I read that article about Netflix and Blockbuster. When Netflix went to Blockbuster and they said, we're the next big thing. And Blockbuster laughed at them and said, what are you talking about? People are going to subscribe to watch movies for $5.99 a month. And they laughed them out the door. And when I read that, when Sumayya came to me, I was like, Sami, are you the blockbuster here? I wasn't convinced by the idea. I was like, no, like, what if somebody else takes it? Better to try the idea and fail than let someone else do it and succeed and have the regret in my heart. And subhanallah, turns out Sumaya is a genius in these things. Now we've got 15 destinations, taking hundreds of Muslims every month, all these different destinations. And when you see a girl from New York flying out from Bosnia at the end of the trip and she's crying, and you think it's because you went overboard with your jokes, and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to get bad review, I'm going to get bad review. And I'm like, listen, what can I do? Do you want refund? Do you want this? Do you want whatever? Don't cry if you come on my trips. I ain't giving you a refund. But in any case, but I was like, what can I do? What can I do? Was it one of my jokes? And she said, no, it's not your jokes. I just can't believe I lived 33 years of my life and I never knew my ummah suffered like this in Bosnia. And I think, subhanallah, Sumaya, alhamdulillah, that I read the article about Blockbuster. She said, I'm Netflix, aren't I? And I was like, but the point that I'm saying is that I acknowledge, I'm giving you a story where I didn't know an idea would succeed, but I went with it anyway. For selfish reasons, I didn't want to be humiliated. But in any case, just try it. Better to have tried and failed than not to have tried at all. So when you do the AI stuff about letters to your representatives, please send me the link so that I can forward it to people in New Jersey, and these are, I can tell them use this AI app. I know there are people here sitting here who are capable of doing it. Bismillah, I have no idea how to start, how to do it, but you guys do. The answer to the question is, do anything, because you don't know what it is that will make the difference. And I promise the final point I'm making is this. I'm starting already. In the battle of the trench in Khandaq, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not know how to drive back the Ahzab, the tribes that had come against him. They were debating between themselves, how do we win this battle? No one had an idea how to win it. No one knew how they were going to get out of it. Salman al-Farisi, his plan for the trench was to delay, was to prevent them from marching. It wasn't to drive them back. They didn't know how they were going to drive them back. So they dug the trench. They said, let's try the idea. It's better than nothing and it buys us time. So they dug it. When they dug it, the idea comes from the other side. Nu'ayman comes from the other side when the Muslims aren't expecting it. Because the Muslims mobilized, they moved, they dug the trench, they bought time. Because they bought time, so you might have a plan that doesn't produce the result that you want. But because they did it, they bought some time. Nu'ayman ends up coming to the Prophet ﷺ. He says, Ya Rasulullah, I know how to drive them back. And listen to this story because I think it relates to us over here. The Prophet ﷺ says, Tawakkal Allah, and Nu'ayman tells him the plan. So Nu'ayman, he goes back to the Ahzab, and he goes to Ghatafan. And he goes to Ghatafan, and he says something very Republican. He tells them, guys, what are we doing here? This is a beef between Quraysh and Quraysh. Why are we spending all this money and all these resources and stuff on a war that has nothing to do with us? Does it sound Republican or does it not? Why are we spending all this resource? Why have we marched all this way just for some petty feud between Quraysh and Muhammad? Guys, do you think it's wise to spend all this money? And Ghatafan went, wallah, you might have a point. Why are we doing? Then he goes to Abu Sufyan. Ghatafan are saying, why are we spending all this money over your beef with regards to Quraysh between you and Muhammad? And they're thinking of withdrawing. Abu Sufyan says, I'm sick and tired of this discomfort anyway. If they're thinking of withdrawing, this whole thing is useless anyway. Yalla, we're going to pack up, withdraw. Then he goes back to Ghatafan. Abu Sufyan is withdrawing. How much? We went all this way. Khalas, we're withdrawing as well. And they all leave. Without the Muslims even having to raise a weapon to fight. The point is, you don't know where the idea is going to come from. And you don't know what kind of idea is going to result in a magnificent victory. They were facing an existential crisis. The enemy was driven off by a rumor. And you might think a rumor means nothing. But here, the seerah tells you that even something you think is minor can have a momentous and tremendous impact. For ya ibadallah, don't think that the solution has to be big. Often it's the little ideas that germinate and become that big idea that leads to an irresistible snowball effect that drags me from London, where I was comfortable watching Arsenal lose another attempt to win the league, and find myself here in America where people say, what are you doing in America? I say, no, wallah, I don't know. I have no idea. But I'm here because somehow some idea was germinated and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing all our efforts together to try to reinforce one another. We didn't know we'd be meeting like this. I had no ambitions ever to come to New Jersey. I'm glad. I will say one thing honestly, and I know I'm being recorded, so other states will get offended. I was actually asked, Sami, you've been all over America. What are your 3 favorite places? I told them Seattle, because it's beautiful. It's very pretty. The water, the trees, even when it rains, it's so pretty. It's like Picasso or Monet, like they drew. When I said Picasso or Monet, my wife told me, Sami, you do know one drew human beings, the other drew nature. Like, you need to know which one. And I think, was it Monet who drew the nature? Because Picasso is a bit awkward. Anyway, in any case, Seattle is lovely. Like, you sit there and you think, Masha, an artist drew this. The second place is actually New Jersey. No. But when someone asks me, like, someone's like, but what do you mean? What do you mean? Well, you came to California, what do you mean? And I thought about it. I said, I don't know. I just liked it. They're like, what do you mean? I said, I don't know. It just felt like I was in the 1960s. It just felt authentic. They were like, and then today when we were having lunch, some of the guys from New Jersey, they were like, I don't know if you're insulting us or praising. I said, no, like, I love it. Like, the people in it are lovely, you know, like, I enjoyed it. Like, New Jersey people are direct, like, they're straight. You know, like, they're just like straight to your face, boom, you know, like, kind of thing. Because you have to understand, like, I come from London, it's very similar. When I went to California, when I landed, I remember, like, on my first night, I couldn't sleep because of the jet lag. So I woke up, like, early, like 3, 4 a.m., tried to sleep 6:30. I thought, forget it, I'm just going to go out for a walk. And I went to find a cafe open, and I remember these people jogging in their yoga pants, like, coming this way, and they were just like, hey, good morning, how are you? And my reaction was, whoa, you're way too happy for the morning. Like, I feel like New Jersey is more on this wavelength, you know? It's like, yeah, honestly, like, I can see many of you nodding. It's very, you know, like, yeah, mashallah, like Allah. Even when you talk to each other, I can see it. You push boundaries a little bit. You know, you're sort of just like, oh, what you talking? Forget about it. You know, like but, and the third place actually was, I don't know why. Like, I'm sure there are more beautiful places, but the Houston food scene is really good. Like, Houston, like, for food, Bismillah, mashallah, la quwwata illa billah, like, wow, like, I can't lie, like, whatever restaurant you go to there, maybe I was taken to a nice restaurant. No, to be honest, I went to food trucks. Tacos, man, like, wow. Like mashallah. But the point that I wanted, going back to the original point, I digressed, but in any case, I wanted to show my appreciation, but also, ya ibadallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not asking you to deliver the perfect solution. Allah is asking you to move. Allah is not asking you to know it all, for He said He knows it all. Allah is asking you to trust Him and move. Allah sent Musa to Khidr. Musa did not know, alayhi salam, what was the correct thing to do. And when Khidr did the correct thing, Musa objected because he didn't know that it was the correct thing. When Khidr puts the hole in the boat, Musa says, أَخَرَقْتَهَا لِتُغْرِقَ أَهْلَهَا. Are you trying to ruin this family? Allah is not asking you to know. Allah is asking you to trust Him and move. And that's why I finish on this hadith. That's why I think Allah said that if you take one step towards me, I take 10. If you walk towards me, I come running. I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said this because it's hadith Qudusi. I think the reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said this is because you know the 10 steps. He comes 10 steps to make sure you don't make 10 mistakes. Because when Allah sees you moving, that's all He wanted to see. Move, and if it was the wrong step, He guides you to 10 correct steps. That if you walk and it happens to be the wrong walk, wrong path, Allah comes running to make sure you don't continue on the wrong path, to bring it straight. Allah is not asking you for the right move. Allah is asking you to move based on what you determine, and Allah will open the guidance that you need to do what is right. And that's why if you notice the prophets, when they're under pressure, they don't say, Inna ma'ya Rabbi sayansurani. Allah is with me, He will give me victory. They say, Inna ma'ya Rabbi sayahdeen. Allah is with me, He will guide me in terms of how to move forward. And that's why, ya ibadallah, this is what I mean. I don't know what's the best idea. I know my answers sound vague. I know it sounds like that whenever anyone asks me a question, Sami, where's your ear? I'm doing this and I still can't find my ear. I get it. But what I'm trying to say to you is, you know the solution without asking me. You know what you need to do without asking. You know what you have to do. What's stopping you is that you feel that your inability to see the result on the other side means you shouldn't move. I'm telling you, you're not supposed to see it on the other side. You're supposed to move, and Allah will eventually show you what it looks like on the other side. Accept Allah knows what it looks like. Accept that He's the one you trust to know what's on the other side. Accept that He's the one, the best person to, the best being to trust with the future, and say, Allah, I don't know what's the right path. in terms of how the right strategy, but I do know someone committed a genocide, and I do know we should punish the one who committed genocide, and I do know based on my limited wisdom that we have some sort of ability to do so. I don't know how to deploy that power, but Ya Allah, I'm going to try and move, and Allah guide my path to maximize the use of that power. And I think when Allah hears that dua from you, He will say, Ya ibadallah, because you move, I'm ready to give it to you. And that's why when you read even about the prophets, you might feel the heartbreak, you might feel the despair. But the reason why I think that the seerah is an extraordinary book of politics, why I think the Quran is an extraordinary book of politics, is because in the Quran, Allah tells us that Nuh alayhi salam got so frustrated with the lack of results from his da'wah that he said, Rabbi inni da'awtu qawmi layla wa nahara wa lam yazidhum du'ai illa firara wa anni kullama da'awtum litaghfir lahum ja'alu asabihum fi adhanihim wastaghshaw thiyabahum wa asarru wastakbaru istikbara. Nuh alayhi salam says after his da'wah, Allah, I've called on my people day and night. The same way some of you here, you whisper, he keeps telling us social media, we've been doing it for 100 days. That's 100 days. Nuh did it 900 years. Nuh alayhi salam says, Allahumma, I've called on my people day and night, and every time I call on them, they run away from me. And when I call on them so you might forgive them, they put their fingers in their ears, they cover their faces, and they treat me with arrogance. The question here, ya ibadallah, Nuh is not seeing the results, alayhi salam, that he wants to see. Does he stop? Does he give up? Does he go home? Does he say it's useless? He keeps repeating it again and again and again because it's all he knows what to do. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards him for what? For moving. Rewards him for mobilizing. Rewards him for never giving up. Because for the Muslim, this dunya is about getting into Jannah through our striving and our efforts. And that's why, ya ibadallah, don't be an ummah that does nothing. Don't be an ummah that sits at home. Move, ya ibadallah. Move. Move and make the difference, because you are making the difference. And ya ibadallah, when you judge victory, don't judge it on your terms. Judge it on the basis that Allah has guaranteed it, and therefore you're judging your efforts on the basis that you're making them, not that they're succeeding. For wallahi, there are prophets who spent their whole lives strategizing, and Allah still destroyed their people at the end. Allah is the one in charge of the outcome. And that's why when you humble yourself to the point where you say, Ya Allah, I appreciate that nothing is out of your control in this world. I appreciate that every Palestinian who's died is in Jannah now with you. فَرِحِينَ بِمَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. I know it that there is no punishment of the grave. There's no waiting for the book in the right on the left. There's no day of judgment. There's no waiting for the scales. I know they're with you in a place where I'd rather be now. Give me the choice to spend the rest of the days in dunya, go to Jannah. Put your hand if you'd rather go to Jannah. It's a no-brainer, right? They're in a much better place, subhanallah. Allah is telling you, I've handled that. But for us who are left here, what is it on us to do? And that's why I think that many Muslims, they think of the big things without realizing that the prophets, they always did the small things. They did the little things of giving something to the neighbor, the kind word, the gift. They did all these. You read that hadith. When you read hadith about even a smile can be charity, how many of you think of it in a political way? That to smile and make the community see Muslim as happy people makes people ask, what makes Muslims so happy? What is it about their life that makes them so friendly? Oh, it's the Quran. What is the Quran? Oh, their prophet told them to smile. Oh, their prophet told them to be happy. I'm miserable, my children never visit me. I'm miserable, I'm struggling to keep the rent on top of me. I'm miserable, I'm struggling to maintain this roof. I'm miserable, but look at them, how happy they are. Look how they give in charity. Look how they gather as a community. Do you think ahadith are personal? Ahadith are political. When the Prophet ﷺ says, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه, that no one truly believes until they love for their brother what they love for themselves. Do you think this is a personal hadith? Do you think that people outside, when they see the community rushing to each other's aid, when they have a sandwich and they split it in two, and the person says, why do you keep splitting your food with them? They say, because the Prophet said that none of you believe until they love for your brother what they love for themselves. I don't want to eat while my brother doesn't eat. And the person looks and says, whoa, man. Like, do you guys just live your lives like this? And so they become Muslim. And when they become Muslim, the numbers increase. And when the numbers increase, they have more influence. And when they have more influence, what happens? Islam spreads. And when Islam spreads, it becomes the fastest growing religion in the world. And it becomes the haven for the Jews when they're persecuted by anti-Semitic Europe. Ibadallah, you think ahadith are personal. They've never just been personal. The Prophet ﷺ gave us these ahadith to build a community, to build a society. And think about it this way, and I promise I'll finish on this point. I promise. Astaghfirullah. I always wondered that if you had one message to give, if you knew you were going to die tomorrow, what would be the message that you would leave behind? And then I asked myself, wait a minute, let me see what the Prophet ﷺ said just before he died. He stands on Khutbat al-Wada' in the last speech, and he says in the beginning, hear me, for this may be the last time I address you. So he knows it's the last time he might address the Muslims. What does he say? Does he say, go out and conquer? Does he say, go out and, does he say, go do these big, no. He tells him, Ya ibadallah, إن أموالكم وأعراضكم ودماؤكم حرام عليكم كحرمة يومكم هذا في بلدكم هذا في شهركم هذا. Oh, you who believe, your blood, your property, and your honor are sacred between you. Meaning that if anybody's honor, blood, or integrity is violated, rush and uphold it, for it is sacred to you, like the sacredness, like the sanctity of Mecca, the land that Mecca is on, in the holiest month of the year and the holiest day. So that Kaaba that you venerate each other's wealth, property, and dignity in the same way. If you don't see your sister like the Kaaba, if you don't see your brother and their integrity like the Kaaba, know that you have a flawed understanding of what it means to be a community. The Prophet ﷺ continues and he says that the revenge feuds you have between yourselves, set it aside. And I will be the first. My uncle's feud with said tribe is over. It's finished. The Prophet ﷺ said, forgive your vendettas between each other. And I went through Khutbat al-Wada' and I heard the Prophet ﷺ talk about the rights of the neighbor. And I heard him talk. And I said, I don't understand it. This is his final message to us. Where's the grand? And I realized the Prophet ﷺ was talking about the grandness. I was the jahil not seeing it. Because I thought the grandness was the mighty things. I didn't realize that it's those things that are mighty. That's the politics that revolutionize society. That's what changes people. That's what makes Megan Rice do a TikTok video when Gaza is being bombarded. And she says, I want to know where Palestinians get their resilience from. And so I'm going to do one page of Quran every day live on TikTok. And makes her 2 weeks later appear on TikTok live with a hijab and say, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. That's what makes the community which transforms politics and revolutionizes. And that's why I always say, you know, and I do this for myself, and maybe it might work for you, but I'm only telling you this because it applies to me and it may not apply to you. I think all of you are better than Sami a million times. And I don't say that exaggerated humility. I know myself. You only see what Allah has allowed you to see. I know myself and I know what I've gone through life. And I know mistakes that I've made. Sometimes there was one day, you know, you start to imagine, sometimes your imagination runs wild, right? What would I be like in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And you know, you want to think of yourself as, I'm Khalid ibn Walid, you know, or I am Umar ibn Khattab, or I am Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. And then I thought, okay, Sami, calm down a little bit. Calm down. Open the book and read it carefully, properly, and try to see where you would accept to be part of the story. Let me tell you about arguably the most terrifying experience of my life. So I start reading about the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad, and I get to the first 13 years. And 13 years, the Muslims are being beaten up, persecuted. So I imagine myself beaten up, persecuted first 13 years. Relentless. Now I'm not an old man by any stretch of the imagination. So in my current lifespan, 13 years is a long time. Would I be able to tolerate it and put up with it? Would I be the kind of guy to say, oh, listen, this is way too much headache. When you guys are stronger, let me know. I'll join you when you guys are stronger. I get to Sumayya radiallahu anha, who is killed before the Prophet ﷺ can even give da'wah in public. And I said to myself, Sami, would you accept to bow out of the story here? And I was horrified to find myself saying, Sumayya is in Firdaus, radiallahu anha, but I want more of the story. I wouldn't accept to be that. Then you go to the next stage. Bilal ibn Rabah lying on the floor with the rock on his chest. And you think, mashallah, Bilal ibn Rabah, yeah, but do I want to be violated like that? Why can't I be like Abu Bakr as-Siddiq who doesn't get violated like that? And Abu Bakr, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. But in my heart, I knew that there's a disease that's there that I'm starting to discover. Because I don't want to be Bilal. Okay, Mus'ab ibn Umair, radiallahu anhu, converts Yathrib to Medina, but he dies in Badr. Would I accept to bow out of the story, in there where people celebrate Mus'ab ibn Umair, but you're not you don't get talked about, as like a main, like people celebrate you for a particular thing, but you bow out of the story early. And astaghfirullah, I found myself saying, Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu anhu in Firdaus, but I don't know. You get to Hamza, Asadullah. Hamza radiallahu anhu, Asadullah, the lion of Allah. He dies in Uhud in the battle where the Muslims are defeated. Sami, what about here? Surely here now, this is... Let me keep going through the seerah, maybe, and you suddenly realize you're not as you thought you were. And astaghfirullah, I got to Fath Makkah, the opening of Makkah, and I find Suhail ibn Amr, who mocked the Prophet ﷺ at the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, but he stands up and he says, "Oh Quraysh, you were the last to enter Islam, will you be the first to leave it?" And I went, I can be Suhail ibn Amr. And I asked myself why. It's because I realized in my mind, I wanted to be the one applauded at the end in Fatah Makkah. My heart was not ready to be the one, the one ready to commit to the cause with everything that I have. I realized that I was imposing conditions on my da'wah, conditions on whether I would choose to strive for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that I will strive, Ya Allah, on these conditions. And the worst part is, I got to the part of Badr. And if you read Martin Lings is good because he takes a lot of the emotion out of the writing. He writes it almost like a historical record. And you get to the part in Badr where the 1,000 have gathered and the hypocrites are saying, dude, they're 1,000 people. You're 300. They have better weapons, they're experienced. You're 300 and you're actually going to go against them. And astaghfirullah. My mind went, that's a reasonable thing to say. And the terrifying thing about that thought was, because it is 300 against 1,000, it's tough. But the terrifying thought was, and when that thought came in my head, I was like, there's really actually no guarantee that if I was there at the time of the Sahaba, that I would be this grand Muslim that I would like to imagine myself to be. And that in order to be that grand Sahaba, I needed to reconcile my nafs with being somebody who is ready to be a vehicle in any capacity. And then I opened the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam randomly. I was opening the Surah Ibrahim. I was flying, the plane was shaking. So I thought, let me listen to Quran. At least if it falls, I'm listening to Quran. So I listened to Surah Ibrahim. I listened to Surah Ibrahim. And then I got thinking, hang on a second. Ibrahim alayhi salam is told to sacrifice the dearest thing to him, right? To show that he loves Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he goes through a period where he's desperately trying to reconcile it. When he finally reconciles it in its agony, he prepares to commit the sacrifice, but here's the fascinating thing. Allah doesn't take the sacrifice from him. All Allah wanted to see was that he was prepared to do so. And I realized, subhanallah, in order to go there, you need to be ready to be here. That when you're ready to accept to be the vehicle, that's when Allah can make you Salah ad-Din Ayyubi. That when you're ready to be, I'm not denigrating or saying they're low in any way. I'm giving you the disease of the mind that suggests that there are levels. In reality, there's not. Because they're in Firdaus, we're stuck here. They're in Firdaus, they're happy celebrating. So there's really no way in which we can. But that's the point. You open the seerah and it gives you an indication where your heart is with regards to your capacity and preparedness to sacrifice for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is terrifying when you close the book and you realize you might be closer to Ubay ibn Salul. That's the terrifying thing. When you read what he says and you think, I can no longer guarantee. And then when you open Surah Al-Imran, after those, you get to that point, رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا. Allahumma, please do not take us out of this deen after you have guided us. And the ones who say that are ulul albab. And you realize, subhanallah, The arrogant Muslim is the one who thinks he will always be Muslim. The pious Muslim is the one who is terrified that because he knows Islam was a gift from Allah, and to preserve it, he must show gratitude to Allah. And to show gratitude is to take action, and to take action and to struggle in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he said, "i'malu ala Dawood shukra." And that's when afterwards you end up saying to yourself, "Ya Allah, please get rid of this disease in my heart. I'm ready to be a vehicle in any capacity in your struggle and in your cause." And then subhanAllah, as if Muhammad Jalal had read my mind from the Thinking Muslim, he asks me at the end of the podcast, "Sami, how can we be people of Jannah like Salahuddin Ayyubi?" And I got upset. That last part is a tantrum. I said to Muhammad Jalal, why is it that we envisage people of Jannah as the people on the podium, Salahuddin Ayyubi? What made us that we don't appreciate the ones behind the scenes that we never knew about? The ones who kept teaching the Quran in Turkey when Ataturk tried to ban it. The ones who kept teaching the hijabis in Turkey when Ataturk banned the hijab and allowed them to go to university in order to wear the hijab. The ones in Bosnians when the Yugoslavian communist regime was banning MSAs and executing student leaders, but they would still teach the Quran and hold on to La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. You don't know their names, they're the ones in Firdaus. Why, ya Muhammad Jalal, have we become an ummah that celebrates the people on the podium as if we undermine the efforts of the ordinary Muslim? Because then you come to this conclusion and you realize that the solution was always in front of you. When you open the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you go back and read it again after you've realized you're closer to Ubay ibn Salul. But when you go back to the seerah, you get to the point where Abu Sufyan is talking to Heraclius. And Heraclius, a non-Muslim, had the solution there right in front of him and told us it in the seerah. He asked Abu Sufyan, who are the people who support the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and have delivered him to this effectiveness that has worried you so much? Who are the people giving him this victory? And when Heraclius posed the question, I thought, wait a minute. It's not the billionaires. It's not the army generals. It's not these. Heraclius, Abu Sufyan says, it's aradhiluna. It's the ordinary people, the lowest of the society. And Heraclius says two things which made me realize how my own mentality was backwards. Alhamdulillah, I feel I've been liberated from it. Inshallah, I have. Heraclius says that if it's the ordinary people who are mobilizing, moving, who stop giving up, who are the ones who are getting up off their couches and making the efforts for the sake of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if it's the ordinary people, then this is the way of the prophets. And if it is the case that it's the ordinary people, you who are in this room, if it is the case that it is these people who are relentlessly moving and refusing to stay in their homes, Heraclius says, then Muhammad will come to rule the land on which I stand on. This is Heraclius, the equivalent of the United States of America of that period. And you think, subhanallah, if Heraclius acknowledges it's the ordinary Muslims who deliver the revolution, then the fact we're moving for Gaza and Palestine, does that not suggest that we might be able to do the same? And then this is the final conclusion, I promise, this is the final conclusion. When you come to this just follow the line of thought. It might not be correct, but just follow it. So I'm thinking out loud. You know, sometimes in the nighttime, you know, after you can't sleep in it. You think about it then, is ordinary Muslim the right way to describe ourselves? If Heraclius says that we achieve extraordinary things, how is the Muslim anything but extraordinary? And if Allah from upon high has established a direct relationship with you, do you think He established a relationship with an ordinary creature? Allah, the most extraordinary, established a relationship with you directly, because لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. We created them in perfect proportion. Allah is proud of His creation. He believes His creation is extraordinary, and He established a direct link. How did an ummah go from forgetting this extraordinary relationship to convincing itself it was ordinary? And that's when I realized, yeah, Sami, you live your life as a jahil, you know. All of these things were staring you in the face and you doubted it. But subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives knowledge in His own time and the right time, in the capacity and the like. I don't believe anyone in this room is ordinary. I believe everyone in this room made Netanyahu buckle, made Biden buckle, made Blinken buckle, made under 35s in Americans pro-Palestinian, made that Kamala Harris's daughter ignores her mother and raises money for Palestine, made Macron call for a ceasefire, made the ICJ result in a ruling that Israel must stand trial for genocide, that it made the CNN presenter apologize for running the beheaded baby story. The CNN presenter ignored Biden, ignored Netanyahu, and said there's a power greater than Biden and Netanyahu that I need to be worried about. It's the power of these people who are lambasting me and demanding I hold journalistic standards. I need to apologize lest they deploy a power that will result in consequences for me. That's why we see Biden trying to find a masjid to receive him or Muslim leaders to sit with, because he knows that the Muslims who believe themselves ordinary are extraordinary in their ability to punish him for committing that genocide. Ibadallah, the ummah has never ever been ordinary. It's just that Allah has been waiting to see whether the ummah appreciates that it's extraordinary. And when the ummah took one step, Allah took 10. When the ummah went walking to Allah, Allah ran to this ummah. We've brought about an unprecedented change. And I promise you, no matter what happens in Gaza, and may Allah give them sakina and be with them and give them their justice. But I will say this, in 1945, France massacred 30,000 Algerians in a brutal massacre in Stef Kharata and Gelma. And the French, they said, we're massacring them to teach them that resistance is futile and they will never be free. Allah had written that 17 years later, Algeria would be free despite never being militarily superior to the French in any way whatsoever. All power belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the secret of the power of this ummah was revealed when the Algerians took to the streets, when they brought about the defeat of the French, who were this mighty colonial power. When they brought about the defeat despite never being militarily superior, the Algerians revealed the source of their strength when they took to the streets and they chanted, Ya Muhammad Mabruk Alik, Al Jazair Raj'at Lik, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, congratulations, we delivered Algeria back to you. We never gave you up. We never gave up Allah. They persecuted us for 132 years. But Ya Rasulullah, congratulations, we returned Algeria to you. And the French said, what is it about these people? They never give up. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, despite colonization, despite persecution. Why is it the Turks, when Ataturk changed everything, the alphabet, tried to de-Islamize Turkey, why is it the Muslims of Turkey kept going? Why did the Kurds of Turkey kept going? And they kept hitting the system, they kept denting it, they kept resisting the military coups, they kept teaching the Quran, they kept teaching their generation until they smashed the system and they delivered Erdogan to power. Why is it the Bosnians, they survived the persecution of the communist regime, they survived the execution by the communist regime, they survived the genocide, but still in the heart of Europe, they roar La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. These are a people, all they needed to do was give up La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah and they would have been left alone. They chose not to, because they knew that all power belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They believed the greatest honor was in being the vehicle. You don't know their names, you've never heard of them, but Allah knows them, because when their souls went back to Allah, they heard, Ya ayyatuha an-nafsul mutma'inna, oh beautiful lovely soul, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyya, come back to Allah. Allah knows your name and He celebrated you. Allah knows what you did. Allah knows the way you kept going. Allah knows the way you kept striving despite that persecution. Irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyya. And Allah tells them, fadkhuli fi ibadi, enter, come, let me show you what is the dearest thing that you could possibly see. Fadkhuli jannati, enter my Jannah. And those that you've never heard of, those people, you think Jannah is only for Salahuddin Ayyubi. I'm telling you, you're looking at the cherry on the top. You need to look at the cake and eat the cake itself, and look at those those people who kept striving and mobilizing, who built these masajid for us to have our haven, who kept pushing and striving, because the reality, as Muhammad Asad says in his book, why does the world not go after Hinduism or Buddhism or these other religions the way it goes after Islam? It's because Islam is a religion where the ummah refuses to give it up, and Islam is a religion that commands the Muslims to stand up for justice, and this world would prefer to keep their injustice going, but the Muslims believe that because the greatest honor is in being the vehicle, do to me what you wish, I will never give up this message. And that's why Allah has given victory after victory after victory for this ummah. Even when they're bombarding Gaza, all of the analysts are unanimous that whatever happens in Gaza today, their dead are in Jannah. But when it ends, people will say that Netanyahu has done so much damage to Israel, that the global order has now collapsed, that the values order doesn't exist anymore because they supported genocide. And now there are shifts taking place in the world. Now alliances are changing. Now the political plates are changing. Why? It wasn't nation states that brought it about. It's you who refuse to be quiet. There's no such thing as ordinary. Everybody here is extraordinary. Keep going, keep making the difference, and may Allah give us victory in this life and the next, and may we have a face to show the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to say to him, Ya Rasulullah, 1400 years ago you died, but we still heard your call, we still responded to your call. And Ya Rasulullah, though we never met you, though we never saw you, though we never spoke to you, we loved you as if we did. We loved you like we saw you. We loved you as if we knew you. We loved you as if we had spoken to you, Ya Rasulullah. And Ya Rasulullah, they tried to persecute us, they tried to kill us, slaughter us, colonize us, they tried to violate us, but Ya Rasulullah, they told us all we had to do was give you up. And Ya Rasulullah, I want to tell you, I never gave you up, Ya Rasulullah, for you were dearer to me than anything they could possibly do to me, Ya Rasulullah. And I hope that in Jannat al-Firdaus we're all sitting there in that gathering, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will say to us, you have won, you have won, you have won. Barakallahu fikum.
Takbir! Takbir! Jazakallah khair. That was, mashallah. So, we're going to wrap up, inshallah, with one last question. But before we do, I want to remind everyone, please submit your completed pledge forms for the Mass Foundation. If you have already completed your form, please make sure to submit it before you head out, inshallah. So, Brother Sami, this is our final question for the night. When one part of the body hurts, we all hurt. How does the situation in Pakistan with Imran Khan have an impact on our ummah and in Palestine in particular?
I think that one of the greatest tragedies, in my opinion, that colonization inflicted on us was not just the physical aspect, but the mental aspect. What colonization did was it disconnected us as a body, it tore our limbs from each other, and our memories became disconnected from each other. When I read Ibn Kathir or Ibn Khaldun or Ibn Taymiyyah and their scripts, they talk about the politics of the ummah from Morocco all the way to Jakarta and beyond. For them, it's just normal. We are one ummah. It makes sense that someone from Tunisia knows about the affairs of Pakistan. It makes sense that the Pakistani talks about Saudi. It makes sense that the Saudi talks about Malaysia. One ummah, one brotherhood where we all influence each other. When it comes to Imran Khan, let me be brutally honest. Imran Khan burst onto the scene. And when he gave his speech in the United Nations, he was a wonderfully eloquent advocate for the Muslim causes. In Azerbaijan, secular Azerbaijan, when they liberated Nagorno-Karabakh, Imran Khan's influence was so effective in going beyond the ethnic and nationalist lines that Azerbaijan, in their celebrations, they lifted 3 flags. Turkey, which gave them the drones, Azeri flag and Pakistani flag. When Imran Khan emerged onto the scene, there was a shift in the Muslim world that culminated in the Kuala Lumpur summit in 2019. The Saudi Crown Prince and the UAE were so terrified of the Kuala Lumpur summit because they believed if Imran Khan went and attended, Imran Khan would lend a Muslim legitimacy to this conference that was designed to rebuke the de-Islamization policies of UAE and Saudi Arabia, which were looking to introduce alcohol, looking to introduce OnlyFans model concerts, which were looking to introduce casinos into those areas. The Saudis, they threatened Imran Khan. They said, Wallahi, if you go to Kuala Lumpur, we will cut our investments to Pakistan and we will kick out the Pakistanis from Saudi Arabia and you can deal with it. Pakistan must be dependent on us. It cannot be equal to us. Imran Khan, the potential that he was about to bring in terms of establishing an independence. Remember, at every OIC meeting, Imran Khan would bring up two topics, Kashmir and Palestine. The reason that troubled Saudi and UAE so much, there are many people who think Imran Khan was just words. If he was just words, Saudi UAE would not have celebrated his toppling, nor would the US representative have said to the establishment in Pakistan, get rid of him and all will be forgiven. The Imran Khan's words were having such an impact, the way your words are having an impact on Biden, Blinken, and the shift in public opinion, that Imran Khan was bringing up Kashmir at a time in which Saudi and UAE were trying to get warmer ties with India. Remember, when Indian Prime Minister Modi's official insulted the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha, Modi panicked so much that he issued an unprecedented statement. He said, we respect all religions. His party had never made a statement like that in their entire history. They commissioned an article in Oman and other Arab capitals desperately trying to defend Modi and saying Modi had kicked out the official. Modi was worried that there would be a boycott and that the Muslim nations would punish India. Guess which country bailed Modi out and invited him to their capital to tell him, don't worry, this issue doesn't matter to us, ignore the Muslim anger. It was the United Arab Emirates, where bin Zayed received Modi and told him, Ta'ala, come, and they hugged him and they built a temple in UAE last week to show we're moving beyond Islam and Muslim causes, where now we want warmer ties, we don't really care about these issues. Imran Khan was making them sign on papers telling them that they respect Kashmir's right to independence at a time in which they didn't want to upset India. So they were getting annoyed. Imran Khan kept bringing up Palestine at the OIC and making Saudi and UAE sign on a commitment to Palestinian liberation at a time in which UAE and Saudi were trying to get close to the Israelis. They told Imran Khan, listen, calm down, bro. I'm trying to get close to India and Israel. Why do you keep bringing up these issues? Why do you keep talking about it? The Saudis were getting them not to talk about it. We brought Iggy Azalea and Shakira and Mariah Carey to get them to forget about Palestine, Kashmir. Why are you bringing it up in the OIC? The UAE said we're building casinos and the like to make them forget about Palestine and Kashmir. Relax, why do you keep talking about it? Take a few million and shush. And Imran Khan said, I'm not gonna shush. Then Imran Khan made the greatest crime in Pakistan. He tried to appoint a chief of staff of the army and appoint an intelligence chief, which is the democratic right of any elected leader, but in Pakistan apparently it's haram. It's la yajuz. So they panicked and they kicked him out of power. When they kicked him out of power, you who believe yourselves to be ordinary, do you know why they couldn't arrest him? Because thousands of Pakistanis took to the streets. They tried to arrest him in Zaman Park, they couldn't do it. They tried to, they said, let's hold by-elections just to get rid of PTI. They did the by-elections, PTI won a landslide election in the largest province in Pakistan, in Punjab. Then they panicked and they said, Ya ilahi, what's going on over here? Then PTI, they tried to pull a nice move. They wanted to dissolve the assembly of Punjab to force general elections. The establishment said, whoa, 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 whoa. They said, we're not holding general elections. We're going to appoint a new assembly. And then they went to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said, no, you have to hold elections. They said, Toz for Supreme Court. We're not respecting the Supreme Court. The reason they couldn't arrest Imran Khan was because people were getting like Arab accounts were talking about Imran Khan. They were raising awareness, saying, dude, what's happening to Imran Khan? He's being attacked only because he's certainly raising the awareness. But ya ibadallah, let me tell you something phenomenal about these Pakistani brothers and why I believe the ummah is alive. I refuse to believe the ummah is weak. The establishment spent 2 years preparing to rig the elections to ensure that Imran Khan would be eliminated from the scene and PTI. They got him in prison, they arrested him because on May 9th, some installations were burnt. Some Pakistanis, they got scared suddenly and they went home. I don't know why, but in any case, it is what it is. They arrested Imran Khan. They threw 250 charges. They found something about his marriage. Apparently the wife didn't wait for an iddah period or something. Something was so ridiculously disgusting the way they did it. But in any case, they put him in prison. And they tried to rig the elections. But this is the point I was making about social media. When I said earlier that they can shadow ban thousands of accounts, they can't shadow ban millions. They can't shadow ban millions of accounts. They can't shut down millions of voices. Because when they tried to rig the elections, what the Pakistanis did was, they went and voted for independents who are from Imran Khan's party. And they came first. They started rigging in broad daylight. I went to bed and there was somebody leading with like 180,000 votes. I woke up the next morning, they reduced it to 90,000 votes. It was rigging in broad daylight. But they were so clumsy at rigging that even international media came out and said it's clearly rigged election. The reason I give you this context is, one, please read about what's happening in your ummah. Please learn about what's happening in your ummah. Please start to take an interest in the communities in your ummah. Please learn to talk about your ummah the way you talk about American football or basketball or the like. Please learn about your ummah and learn about it. But also, in my opinion, if Imran Khan was in power, I think there'd be a much louder voice for Palestine. I think if Imran Khan was in power, there would be a greater shift in the Muslim world that Erdogan would be encouraged to pursue as well. So would Malaysia and the like. I think that Imran Khan in those 3 years showed what a potential huge change can happen in the Muslim world. That's why I believe he was toppled. But more than anything else, it's not just about Imran Khan. What we're seeing in Pakistan is a revolution by the people to push back against an establishment, to say to them absolutely clear, Pakistan was not supposed to serve an establishment, it was supposed to serve the Pakistani people. And for those who say, Sami, but all this is just Pakistan, what does it have to do with me? Ibadallah, I'm proof of it. I'm an Arab. The reason I know so much of what's happening in Pakistan, including the fact they kidnapped a guy called Usman Dar for 20 days. And then he pops up after 20 days on TV and says, Imran Khan told me to go burn military installations. So like clumsy the way they did it. Why does an Arab know this? Because Imran Khan's message resonated. Why does an Arab know this? Because Imran Khan made Pakistan relevant to us. Imran Khan showed us a vision where Pakistan is a key part of the ummah. And I, as a Muslim who resonates with the ummah, I said, you know what actually, Sumaya, do you think it's worth going to Hanza Valley? Why don't we go visit Islamabad and Karachi? Why don't we go put our money in Pakistan? Imran Khan sounds like he's got some good ideas like to bring the Muslims together. Let's go and support him. We won't go to, Switzerland or the like. Let's go and see what Pakistan is like. He was shifting the way that we thought about Pakistan, shifting the way that we thought about the ummah. And that's why, ya ibadallah, let no one ever tell you that words don't matter. Let no one ever tell you that symbolism doesn't matter. Let no one ever tell you that words doesn't matter, because it does, because it affects change and it causes a shift that results in a series of consequences that results in new opportunities. Pakistan now is in a battle. They are desperately trying to make sure that Imran Khan doesn't form a government. They tried to get the two parties who were the beneficiaries of the rigging to form an alliance. There are people who won because of rigging, who have resigned their positions openly saying, I won because of rigging, I don't want to take my position like that. Pakistan is in chaos. If you want to do something for Pakistan, go and tweet about it. Go and talk about it. Go and raise awareness about it. Go and lend your voice to them. For wallahi, your voice is what upsets the establishment, because they've been humiliated so much so that the US, which was happy to see Imran Khan topple, has issued a statement saying that it's expressing concern about what's happening in Pakistan. They're not actually concerned. They are rather trying to leave a way open in case Imran Khan comes back to power. There's a chance that he might. But the ummah needs to rally. The same way that you saw you can make a difference on Gaza, you can make a difference on any issue related to the ummah. Learn about Sudan. Learn about Pakistan. Go and learn it. You learn about so many other things. What's stopping you from going to learn and teaching your kids that these things matter? For wallahi, these borders are artificial. The ummah is one. And the proof is that Allah in the history of Islam, the liberation of Al-Quds was done by Umar al-Khattab, the Arab, and by Salah ad-Din, the Kurd, and Constantinople fell to the Turk. And we have the most profound scholars in our history like Baba Ahmed from the West African kingdoms. And we have some of the greatest poets and scholars from modern day Pakistan and India. And we have the Mughals, and we have those from Malaysia and India. Every single ethnicity contributed to Islam, because for them Islam was not ethnocentric. Islam was beyond that. Islam was anybody who said, I'm a Muslim. That's why our armies were composed of people from everywhere. Ibadallah, when did the ummah start believing these borders that were made? Let's look beyond it. Let's learn about it. Because wallahi, in my opinion, if the Pakistanis win in Pakistan, there will be a domino effect on the rest of the Muslim world, inshallah.
Takbir. Takbir. Brother Sami, thank you so much. Wallahi, I'm speechless on how to remark on all we've learned tonight. Tabarakallah. Before we head out, please, can we just give one final round of applause to our brother Sami for coming out here twice and doing such an amazing job. Tabarakallah. Thank you guys so much. Jazakallah khair. Please remember to submit your forms for the pledges, inshallah. And remember, if you book a trip with Brother Sami, make sure to cry. Make sure to cry. Jazakallah khair. Have a good night, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.